The ending for Citadelle des Morts reveals a huge revelation, something that we have been questioning ever since the beginning of the Dark Ether story in Cold War. Edward Richtofen. How did he get himself into the situation where he is right now in Black Ops 6 Zombies? What happened to him as soon as he left that old universe with Takeo, Nikolai, Dempsey and the Primus and Ultimus versions of Richtofen? What happened as soon as he entered this Dark Ether universe along with Samantha's children? We know of a couple of events that took place, such as Richtofen losing his wife and son in a house fire. The storyline seems to be revolved around that a lot, but there were so many key details that we were missing. And well, the Citadelle des Morts ending cutscene was, to say the least, shocking, where Gabriel Kraft, with his final dying words, reveals that Richtofen is in fact his son, and he adopted him from the orphanage that he ended up in as soon as he entered this new timeline. However, we've got to the point where ultimately, as you can see in this ending cutscene, Richtofen indirectly, or well, he is directly involved in this, got Kraft, his adoptive father, killed. Richtofen knew what he was doing, he knew the fate that Kraft would come to, he got the person that's brought him up killed, showing to us, along with many other things he's done, that Richtofen is insane. He is not the sweet, innocent child that we thought he was. But what happened to him? What caused him to become, as I would describe, almost as evil or maybe even worse than the Ultimus and Primus versions of him? So in Citadelle des Morts, our characters, Weaver, Grey, Carver, Strauss, Peck, Revanov, Maya, and I guess Sam the Synaptic Algorithm Module, travel to Citadelle to hunt down Gabriel Kraft. At the time in Terminus, they had no idea who he was, besides from the fact that Richtofen was trying to track him down because he had knowledge of a relic called the Sentinel Artifact, which can be used to manipulate Prima Materia, which was the very first matter to ever exist. If Richtofen gained this power, he could cause irreparable damage, and so, not wanting him to get his hands on this, we came to Citadelle to get it before Richtofen. When they arrive, they find Kraft locked away in the castle by the French Syndicate. They do a few things to eventually try and free him, but they are seconds too late. Zombies break into his prison cell and attack him, and that's basically where this ending cutscene kicks in.
Kraft, we need to know, what do we do with the amulet?
Take it to the excavation site, but beware the Sentinel artifact. It could consume you.
And Richtofen, where is he? We know he contacted you.
Please don't kill him. He is my son.
He's your what?
I don't think he knew he was raising a monster. Until it was too late.
And the dig site he mentioned. It is not far.
In his final couple of breaths, Kraft tells Weaver that he needs to take the amulet he's collected to an excavation site where they should find the Sentinel artifact, and then Weaver asks Kraft, and well, what about Richtofen? Where is he? We know he contacted you, and Kraft replies back, please don't kill him. He's my son, before he dies from this situation that Richtofen's put him in. So that explains how exactly Richtofen even knows of the Sentinel artifact's existence. His adoptive father is literally Kraft, who spent years himself studying it. I'm guessing he would have spoken about the Sentinel artifact around Richtofen as he was growing up, so that's how Richtofen learned about it. But how did he go from that to the situation he is in now, betraying his father, unless there's a good reason that Richtofen has for wanting to kill him, besides from being cold-hearted and not caring about him? Perhaps there's something that went on between Kraft and Richtofen as he was bringing him up that we just don't know of yet, that maybe if we learnt we would say, okay, but it's kind of understandable how Richtofen eventually got him killed, because just in case you weren't aware, Richtofen hired the French Syndicate to hunt down his father, Kraft, and then beat him to extract knowledge of the Sentinel artifact out of him. Without Richtofen paying the Syndicate millions to do this and lock Kraft in this prison, he wouldn't be dead right now. So he killed him. He may as well have strangled him with his own hands, but why would he do this to the man that brought him up? Richtofen entered this universe as a lonely child. It was just him and Samantha. When they arrived, they both got put into an orphanage and split up. There is a document you can find in Citadelle, which is an orphanage intake assessment form. Looking at it, it reads, Near Horizon Orphanage. The address is in Berlin, entry number 174489, date of entry 10/08/1954, date and country of birth unknown, boy appears to be 8 years of age. Name and surname, Edward C. Richtofen. Gender, male, eye/hair colour, blue and brown. Physical condition, 47 inches tall, approximately 50 kg. Slight build, large head. Mental emotional condition, very intelligent. Curious, doesn't sleep much. Has nightmares. Strong appetite, bites nails. Note of significance, boy talks to himself. What? Seems to recognise this place. House, neighbourhood, what? Safe in the house. Repeated more like a mantra than a feeling of security. This house? Our facility? How could he know this house? So straight away, even as a child from Richtofen's orphanage intake form, he was already having problems. He was having nightmares of the old universe. When he entered the Dark Ether timeline along with Samantha, we thought it was more than possible, although you couldn't say for certain that he had no recollection of anything from that old story. Takeo, Dempsey, Nikolai, Dr. Monty, the Shadow Man was all wiped from his memory. That happened to Samantha, but Richtofen we were never sure on. However, this confirms that's true to a certain extent, because these memories still linger somewhere, but he's regarding them as just nightmares and dreams. However, they're real. He actually went through that. The house he's having nightmares about is, of course, Dr. Monty's house. Regarding his upbringing here, there are also some radios you can find in the map from Kraft where he speaks of Eddie when he first adopted him and how Kraft loved him. All he ever wanted was a son. Back in the 40s during Vanguard Zombies, we know Kraft's husband, Sasha, died, but before that, one of the things they wanted together was their own child. So eventually, after all of the events of that game and honouring his and Sasha's dream, he went to the New Horizon orphanage and adopted Eddie. And this is what Kraft says about it.
When we were young, Sasha and I often spoke of children. It was our dream. A cottage in the country, plenty of land where we could raise our little boys the right way. But there was school, and then there was work, and then Sasha never got that little boy. So I went to an orphanage in the city today. For Sasha. There was a boy. A sickly, starved thing like all the rest, maybe 10 years old, but there was something in his eyes. I spoke to him for hours. He reminds me of Sasha. Sharp, logical, a dreamer at heart. They would have loved each other. The boy suffers from memory loss. His childhood, his parents all gone. His name, Edward, is the only thing he has left. He doesn't understand the world, but he wants to. We're alike in that way. He's asleep now in the spare bedroom. My adopted son. I don't know what comes next. But we're in this together now, my Eddie and I. For better or for worse.
So Kraft told us when talking about his memories of adopting Eddie that he went to the orphanage and he saw this boy there that looked sickly. He looked starved like all of the other children there. He was maybe 10 years old, but he could see something in Eddie's eyes that gave him a feeling he was the boy he had to adopt, the one that he should bring up. Kraft spoke to Eddie for hours. He reminded him of his husband. He was sharp, logical, he was a dreamer. He also recalled how Eddie suffered with memory loss, how his childhood, his parents, all of that were gone. Everything from his time spent in the old multiverse, the only thing he remembered was his name. So Kraft adopted him, but he soon found out that Eddie suffered with nightmares.
The boy is having nightmares again. The terrible things. He wakes drenched in sweat, screaming that it's his turn. He does not remember in the morning. I am beginning to wonder if he is actually taking the pills or if he is just lying to me. Either way, the boy needs a fresh start. Something to help him forget the things that haunt him. Perhaps we both do. Weeks ago, I applied to a project in America. My background in the occult and my unique field experience make me a perfect candidate. I can't say too much even here, but the work is exciting. An excursion along the frontiers of science. The CIA are calling it MK Ultra. I haven't heard back yet, but I'm keeping my hopes high. This could be exactly what Eddie and I need. Perhaps in America we can find a way to end the nightmares.
One of the nightmares Kraft mentions in this radio that Richtofen had, he had many, but this one time he woke up drenched in sweat, screaming that it's his turn, but then in the morning he would totally forget about it. This is in reference to the Origins ending cutscene. Edward is having nightmares of the time when he was a child with Samantha in Dr. Monty's house when the two were playing with their toys, and Eddie said to Samantha,
I didn't even get my turn.
Tomorrow, Eddie, you get to make the rules. I promise.
So even though Eddie thinks he can't remember anything from that old universe, it's clearly somewhere there in the back of his mind, but he's regarding them as nightmares. He obviously doesn't believe that they actually happened to him, and why would he? He'd be crazy to believe that, right? I mean, besides from that, there are plenty of other explanations as to why this could be happening to Richtofen. In one way, shape or form, he still has a connection to that old multiverse, even though it was destroyed. A lot of it was banished to the Dark Ether, and because the Dark Ether still exists, perhaps he still has some kind of connection to it that's causing him to have these selective memories. Either way, Kraft wondered if Eddie was actually taking the pills he'd given to him or if he was just lying. I'm assuming these pills were to help him with the nightmares. It's possible that Eddie didn't take them, but at the same time, this reminds me of the situation with Ava in Modern Warfare 3 where she was taking the pills to fix her headaches. However, that wasn't her problem. Similarly, with Richtofen, no pill is going to help this situation. Anyway, continuing with this radio, Kraft said he believes Richtofen needed a fresh start, something to help him forget the things that haunted him, and so Kraft applied for a new project in America called MK Ultra, and Kraft moved there with Eddie to work on that. Now that's a whole nother story to get into. We still haven't learnt yet how Richtofen went from this to getting Kraft killed, but the one big event we do know that happened was his wife and son died in a house fire. They were killed by his childhood best friend Samantha and Weaver. From what we've pieced together, Samantha gave Weaver some intel. That intel was to kill Richtofen. Weaver went to his house, he had some kind of altercation with him, but he failed in his assassination attempt, and in order to cover his tracks, he burnt down his house, ultimately killing his wife and son in the process. And ever since then, Richtofen's been on some kind of revenge mission to try and bring them back. We believe that's at least one of the reasons why he's tracking down the Sentinel artifact, so he can manipulate prime materia to bring back his wife and son. There's obviously a lot more to it, but if you progress through the Citadelle Easter egg, there is something that Kraft says, which is worth taking note of.
Grief is incomprehensibly powerful. The fire that took Richtofen's family turned him into a monster. After the fire, Richtofen was consumed by darkness. I could not help him.
As his own father said, the death of his family turned Richtofen into a monster, and past that point, darkness just totally consumed him. It changed him and set him on the course he's on now. So we can assume before the death of his family, Richtofen was fine, he was good. That was the turning point for him. But what did Kraft have to do with all of that, right? We believe it was Samantha and Weaver that ultimately got them killed. Unless, is it possible Kraft was involved as well? At the same time, it could be that Richtofen asked Kraft to give him information on the Sentinel artifacts so he could maybe try and bring them back. Kraft refused, and because he loves his wife and son more than he does him, he chose them and went to any means to bring them back, even if it meant the death of his adoptive father. We don't quite know yet, but I think that just about covers all of the bases for this video. So there we go, finally some ties back to the old zombie storyline with Richtofen remembering events of him being in Dr. Monty's house, playing with Samantha, telling her that he didn't get his turn, and the other thing about this is, well, maybe now in Black Ops 6 Zombies, he can finally get his turn. He never got it before as a kid, but maybe he will now as an adult. So there we go, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, drop a like rating, make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest content on the channel. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.